What's better than earning money from a 9-to-5 job? It's earning money while you sleep, which is made possible if you start investing. You're listening to the Real Estate Investing Demystified with your very own dynamic duo, Ava Benesocky and August Biniaz. Tune in as we discuss everything real estate, both on the passive and active sides. We feature life-changing stories of today's real estate leaders that will help build your own roadmap to success. This is a show that will lead you to a diversified portfolio, a much bigger revenue, and a next-level venture that brings you a smooth cash flow. Let's get this episode started. Welcome to the Real Estate Investing Demystified show. We are back in Florida, August and I. We haven't really filmed since we've been back in Florida, but we're back here. It's cold weather.
Yeah, it's interesting to say about Florida, cold weather, right?
I know, right? Yeah. No, it kind of feels like we're in Vancouver right now. We came for the sun, but we're getting a little cold spell here in Naples, Florida.
10 degrees Celsius at nighttime, so that gets pretty cold.
I'm from Alberta, so I'm an Alberta girl, so I'm used to minus 20, so it's not too bad for me.
Yeah, interesting things happening in the world. Yeah. Trump is almost in office here. He's president-elect. Bitcoin broke $100,000 first time ever since it's been around, probably in the early 2013s, I believe it came around. But interesting times in real estate, the world, AI. Some of our conversation today with our guests is going to be about AI, mainly about book writing and book publishing. That's what our guest does. But we're going to talk about the influence of AI. Do we even need to write books anymore, or AI figured it all out?
So. Yeah, let's see. So I co-authored a book, From Ordinary to Extraordinary, with 10 other women.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to be from extraordinary to ordinary. That's not that's right. And a comeback story. That would be a good one there.
That's right. And it was an amazing experience. You write all your thoughts on paper, and then you get an editor to step in, and you get somebody to clean up the writing for you. But it was an amazing experience. It was 10 other women, and we kind of wrote how we found success in real estate investing. So we're excited to interview our host today.
Our guest. Yes.
You'll have to.
You're rusty, Ava.
I'm rusty.
Definitely rusty.
I'm 8 months pregnant, and
you have a little bit of a cough.
And I got a little bit of a cough, so I just want to warn everybody that.
So you're an absolute mess, basically. You're telling me, but we'll figure it out. Go ahead and introduce our guest.
Okay, here we go. All right, today we're joined by Tim Lindsay. Tim Lindsay is the founder of Tellwell, a publishing company he launched in 2015. Since then, he and his team have helped guide some 5,000 authors, including real estate professionals, entrepreneurs, speakers, coaches, consultants, and community builders through the process of writing and publishing their books. Now, Tim specializes in helping experts share their knowledge, grow their personal brand, and establish authority through books. His company works with clients from all walks of life, including athletes, nonprofit leaders, and influencers, giving them the tools they need to publish impactful nonfiction books. So welcome to the show, Tim. We're happy to have you here.
Welcome, Tim.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here today. So, Tim, why don't you start off by telling us, how did you get into the book publishing business? And where did you start off? Were you an English major? Let us know.
Yeah, maybe I did start off as an English major and trying to go into writing at school, but very quickly in first year of post-secondary, I dropped out of writing because I realized, why would I be writing in the first place? I was influenced by George Orwell, who wrote 1984 and an Animal Farm. And of course, his writing was for a purpose. It was to try to stop totalitarianism, as was in Stalinist Russia. So he had a very strong purpose. But what was my purpose as an 18-year-old? So I dropped out because I realized I didn't know why I would be writing. But several years later, I ended up managing the campus newspaper for 2 years. And that threw me back into publishing. It was really interesting. So the first time the campus newspaper had a more conservative editor, which is rare in on campuses, as you may know, but that made it a really nice dynamic environment. So 2 years sort of like printing 8,000 copies of a tabloid newspaper every week, and loved it a lot, learned a lot. And most of our revenue came from advertising. So I started to learn about business then. And but after that, it was 2009. And that's when the sort of real estate banking recessionary economy was hitting, and I just couldn't find a job at that point. All the newspapers were downsizing, publishing companies were often downsizing, a lot of shift in revenue to online advertising and so on. So I had to go at self-employment for about a year, trying to work with sort of startup publications and so on, but ultimately failed, took a full-time job as an employee for 3 years, working in a publishing company, working with authors, kind of representing a team of editors and designers and talking to authors about the publishing process. And eventually, though, I left that job and took a job in mobile media marketing. And my wife, you both met before she was into real estate investment and before she was into publishing and real estate investment. She was a TV journalist and she would do video TV journalism every day. But she took a job for a year doing the evening news. So I had my evenings free and I really missed working with authors and talking to them about publishing. So I actually wrote a book trying to share my expertise with editors and designers and marketers about how they could work with authors and how they could, sell themselves and collaborate. And ultimately, that book, I wrote it really quickly and it led me into starting a little side hustle, working with authors and helping them self-publish. And that led to me, I had to talk to my employer, say, this is what I'm doing. Ultimately, I quit my job within a couple months. And I had my broken iPhone 4 and some great relationships with authors and just kind of built it from there. We're almost 9 years in. So now we've worked with thousands of authors and it's turned into this business. We've got a great team and lots of ups and downs and sideways. I love talking to entrepreneurs, people taking risks, love talking about publishing and authors. So hit me with any questions you have.
Amazing.
Happy to
Absolutely.
get into it.
Yeah, thank you for that background.
Yeah, thank you for the background.
We're looking to give our audience a crash course about how book publishing really works. And could we kind of go to the basics and understand like what is an editor, what is a publisher, how to differentiate, and do authors really need to have both editors and publishers? Give us a quick rundown of that part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. And there's what's called self-publishing and there's what's called traditional publishing, and there's variations across those, and we can get into that. But regardless of, and the basics of self-publishing is that the author has more control and the author is basically owning the project. And if they're going to be investing in things like editing and designer, they're sort of owning that investment, but they're retaining control of the timeline, of the rights to their book, how they use it. And on the other hand, the traditional side is where you're trying to basically get a publisher, like an investor, to see a business case to invest in your book based on their criteria. And that can make sense sometimes, but for many entrepreneurs, they just don't want to try to fit that box for what a publisher would be looking for. And so they will go through some form of self-publishing. And even on the self-publishing side, you can go radically do it yourself, but the downside of that is your quality might suffer. You might not know what you're doing. You might get confused. And then you can go where you are hiring some freelancers, or you can go where you're working with a company like ours who does some guidance, some project management, and helping you through those processes. But yeah, in terms of, so you don't need to work with a publishing company per se. You could do it more yourself. As far as editing, you probably should work with an editor. It's possible that you don't have to, but it's highly recommended. Even if you're going through some form of self-publishing, it's definitely recommended that you do work with an editor. They can help you. They don't take away your voice. They can help your voice, keep your voice, and just help your editorial be a lot better. But the big change that happened in the industry and why that really resulted in the rise of self-publishing is the changes in distribution. Because what is publishing? I mean, you have to write a book, but then it's basically editing, design, distribution, and then marketing and promoting the book. And it's that distribution where that, would confuse most people. And that's where the whole industry transformed because of ebooks, because of print on demand, and because of e-commerce, Amazon, right? So in the old days, it's like you had to print thousands of copies in order to publish. And then you had to try to get a agent and try to get a publisher, and the publisher had to try to get distribution into physical bookstores. And you had to go through all those gatekeepers to publish. And there was a fair bit of risk involved. And that all got basically turned on its head with the advent of print on demand, of ebooks, and of e-commerce, because it meant that even somebody self-publishing could have access to the sales channels right alongside traditionally published books. But it sort of leaves open that question, well, are they going to be quality books? That depends. In the old days, it was an agent and a publisher who decide what is published. Nowadays, there's still one big gatekeeper, and that's the reader, though, right? So, but you can get your book on Amazon. You can have access to the distribution channels. That's all available to anyone. But still, a lot of people would like some guidance on it. They might want some support, and many people will want quality because they care about their reputation and so on. And that quality often comes with help from people like editors and professional designers.
Got it.
And so on.
Taking a quick step back, are you guys our publisher, or you are more of a how would you define yourself?
Like a publishing house?
You guys.
I would define publishing house. Usually that term refers to on the traditional side of the industry. We provide professional publishing services. I would say call us a self-publishing company. So we're on the self-publishing side, but we're also looking at partnering with companies or organizations who want to launch a publishing imprint, but don't necessarily want to do the legwork of creating the technology and the team and so on.
Yeah, and that way the client can be a little bit more in control of their vision, right? Instead of working with an actual professional publisher, in respect to kind of their ideas and not having to stick within that box that you were kind of mentioning. Okay, yeah,
Great.
that totally makes sense.
And then we'll break down the.
I was gonna actually ask one more question. Actually, the difference between like self-publishing and then working with a publisher, like how does that really work when it comes to sales? Right? Does the publisher does the person get to keep most of the sales themselves, or when they work with somebody, is it like how does that work?
Yeah. So the traditional publishing model, the deal is, maybe you get some form of an advance, although increasingly, if you don't have a platform, like if you're not famous, you're not a politician, you don't have a large marketing platform, you're not going to get an advance. But the deal is they publish your book. They'll do maybe some editing, unless they require that you've already edited it and done that. And they'll do some aspect of distribution. Normally the wish of authors is, a publisher's going to come and they're going to market my book so I don't have to.
Right.
And they're going to do everything so I don't have to. And but the reality is most publishers are looking for an author who already has a platform, who already has guaranteed sales, and then they'll help with some of the publishing steps. But yeah, the deal in that model is basically you sign a contract. They maybe give you some form of advance against royalties, but increasingly it's little or none. And they control the rights to publishing, or they get a license to publish. But most of the revenue would be going to the publisher, and the author, if they earn out their advance, they might earn, 10 or 15% of net royalties, something very small. Whereas in self-publishing, since it's the author who's owning the project and taking the risk. And the risk is things like, are you spending money on a professional editor, a professional designer? The risk isn't what it used to be, where you had to print massive amounts of books and figure out how to distribute them. The risk is really if you're investing in some quality. And in self-publishing, you can earn 5 to 10 times higher royalties, so you get the reward there. But for a lot of so that's one main difference. Certainly in self-publishing, you earn 5 to 10 times more revenue. But to be honest, most people who are writing nonfiction books or entrepreneurial books, they're not looking to earn money just from book sales. It's more about
that's I want to get into that, but before you go there, because we also want to break down the process as well. But kind of my next kind of point question was about the intent of an author, and kind of myself, without the trained eye here or having background in book publishing, I really broke it down in 4 different kind of goals or intent that an author would have. Like number one is someone who wants to write a book to sell it to make money. Their total goal is making money from the book, is the income the book makes. Number two is somebody who wants to write a book so they can feel like they're a person of authority, have bragging rights or badge of honor. I've known people who've written books for those reasons. Somebody who wants to write a book because they just have their story heard. They feel like there's such importance in the story that they want to share it with the world. Number four is someone who wants to leverage a book for their business. They have an agenda. They want to write a book to sell, or it could be a combination of these. But is it fair to say those are kind of the four main reasons, or some of the top reasons why someone would write a book?
Yeah, I think you're touching on some of the different reasons and motivations people write books, and that's a really important thing to understand, because you can't restrict the reason to publish a book to one simple profit and loss statement from a publisher's perspective. There's a lot of different motivations, and you certainly touched on several of them. I like to break it into sort of three streams of goals, purposes, or motivations, and I think they overlap with the ones that you've mentioned. The first stream is kind of I break it into like give, build, and become. Or the service why is the give, the strategic why is the build, and the journey why is the become. So the giving part is maybe that includes sharing your story, although that might be more the journey why or the become, but it's about sharing knowledge, sharing information, sharing a story, sharing expertise, empowering people. It's sort of like, what are you doing for the reader of your book? Or what kind of impact are you trying to have that's maybe greater than yourself in a certain sense? You're trying to be of service to a group of people who you identify. So that's the kind of service why, and that's all about informing people with a book, educating them, empowering them, inspiring them, engaging with them. So Ava created a book with many other women about real estate success. So hopefully that could be inspiring, empowering, and informing to other women who might want to follow in your footsteps. So that's the giving part. And then the building part, that is the more strategic part, and it can still be about giving in a sense, but it's about building leverage. Use that word. It's about how you can leverage a book to have an impact, and that can be, and to build a business and so on. So that can certainly include building your authority, your credibility. It can include visibility. So using a book to leverage it for doing podcast tours, or to leverage it for public speaking.
TED
Certainly
Talks,
a book. TED Talks, yeah. TED Talks tend to be, they're a talk that certainly builds your brand and authority in an inspirational way, but you can also do signature talks, or more talks that share a lot of knowledge, but also lead into your business. And then lead generation. So authority, visibility, marketing a business though. So often people need to, at some point in their entrepreneurial journey, branch out and to figure out their business model and streams of income. So that could include coaching, speaking, creating a course, doing masterminds, or if they have a services business, or an investment business, it can be generating leads through the book. And that can, so there's a whole topic there, is like, how do you use a book to generate leads? And it can include selling the book direct, but also it can include within the book, maybe you refer to a lead magnet of some sort.
Sure.
It could be
What's the most common when it comes to your clients who come see you? What's the most common from these three, or some of the ones I mentioned? Which one seems to be the most common reason people want to write a book?
That's a good question. It tends to be not one or the other. People are motivated. It's more like how you score on all three. And the third one, the journey why, that's kind of like you're doing it for the intrinsic rewards of writing a book, where you get to learn through the process. You're actually getting more clear on your thoughts and ideas. The act of putting your knowledge and maybe even learning, there's a lot of reasons why people don't write their book. All the biggest barriers to writing a book are mindset before you even start. People thinking they don't have time, they don't know enough yet, they don't know how to write well enough.
Imposter syndrome type of.
Yeah, Absolutely. All of the same things that would be for maybe getting into real estate or would stop someone from writing a book. But
Mhm.
I think it's a mix. It's surprising that that goal of like making money from book sales is actually not the most important thing for most people. It
Right.
tends to be, but if you're someone in the publishing industry, there's a lot of people who think that that ought to be the only thing that's important, but it's simply not true. People are have a more diverse motivations. It can be quite a meaningful journey though, too. I don't know what kinds of people real estate investors are, but
No, it
I'm
is.
sure.
It is totally like it's a way for people to connect, right? It's a way for people to connect with your story, and that imposter syndrome sometimes is a really good thing because you're writing everything down, bare on paper, and people connect with that,
Mhm.
Um, and one thing I was going to bring up, it's not easy to connect a book to readers sometimes, right? Like, obviously, there's a book for everybody, but like how do you keep the reader like engaged, right? You got to really break that down before you start writing because you can obviously go off track but most importantly, like we're learning, and I want to bring this up because we're learning on YouTube, right? It's really hard to retain somebody on the channel just on a simple YouTube show, right? The retention rate can drop
Not only the
significantly.
channel, but the video, like
The
to
video,
stay
the
on the video
video.
all the way through. And that happens
Yeah.
with books as well,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah, and it can happen with books as well. The good news about a book is that they have to purchase a book up front and then it's theirs forever, right? So
Yes, yes.
so that's
But any strategies you guys utilize to, I think, kind of ending your question here. Go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah. Any strategies you guys utilize to kind of like help your clients, start here and end the book and maybe keep an exciting part for the end of the book and yeah,
Mhm.
talk to us about some strategies that you use.
Yeah. Because on the one hand, a book can have value. Just the fact that you actually publish the book is something worth celebrating, I think, right?
Totally. Yeah.
That you got through the whole project, you got it professionally designed, it looks great, you have this symbol showing that you can get things done and that you have some expertise on the topic of your book. But you're asking the question about engagement and actually getting people to who buy the book maybe to actually read it.
Hmm.
And one piece of that is storytelling,
Right.
and another piece is knowing who you're writing for, right? Who your audience is. So the steps of getting really clear on who your reader is, or for a YouTube channel, it might be the same thing, like who that audience is and defining the audience, trying to think of them as real people so that you speak to them in a voice as you would speak that's natural, as you would speak to. So if you're writing a book for someone, you want to think of an actual person and sort of put them up there as you're writing the book so that you speak in a voice that's natural to them. But then this idea of storytelling, right? It's like you can lecture, you can provide content, but can you think of stories to illustrate your concepts in a way that's engaging and natural? And the thing is, you don't have to do this in the first draft of your book, right? Your first draft is going to be horrible. It always is. And it is for the best writers in the world. So you gotta not let the idea of perfection and this amazingly articulate and engaging storytelling stop you from writing in the first place. Your first draft is about getting it out. But then as you revise it, you're looking for ways to include stories for each piece. And of course, you need an outline. And when I do outlining, it's like you have your basic nuggets of the topics you want to address. You have the sort of subpoints that go under them. But then one dimension of an outline, I call it the fourth dimension, is this question around engagement. So I call it the fourth dimension, but it's about, can I have stories that bring to life and illustrate in an engaging way the concepts? Or is there pictures? Or is there activities or questions? So that's about not just the theory of what you're sharing, but the things that make it engaging. And so certainly you need to know who you're actually writing for and who that audience is. So you can't just be, spewing out knowledge without thinking about who it's for. You want to sort of have that reader in mind and try to speak to them in a simple terms. And then you want to look for ways of making it engaging. And one piece of that is storytelling. But an editor can certainly help take your repetitive and redundant and help you see where it's too long. It can be shortened and made more crisp.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. And like literally having the reader like picture the words that are on the paper, so you're like almost watching a movie in your mind, you know.
A little hard to do it if you're writing a book about real estate private equity. God, that would be a dry book. But some people do
not necessarily. If you're willing to.
Steve Schwartzman's book with Sam Zeller.
It's more of a memoir rather than talking about the mechanics of how funds and syndications work. But let's continue the conversation here, because we want to get some very important points out. We also want you to briefly walk us through the journey. So as if a client comes to see you, they want to write a book, nonfiction book, talk to us the kind of the major milestones of what you look for. And you touched on this earlier, but just go through that for us, if you don't mind.
Yeah, if you break it into 4 pieces, I'm actually writing a book about this very topic, and I use 10 steps. So I'm struggling through the journey. I can tell you all the hard parts and the shortcomings, but if you simplify it to 4 steps, it's plan, write, publish, promote. So the part where most people get stuck is really before they even start writing the book, right? Because they have some vague ideas, and then they have things that are holding them back, like the idea that, okay, I have, when I did my first book, Monica had her evening newscasting job, so I had my evenings free, and I wrote it in a month. This time around, we have 2 kids. I'm CEO of a company. But I had it in my head, I need to wait until I can have a month on an island where I can write a book. But no, you don't need that. You just need to audit your life and find these little consistent bits of pieces of time. So the first step, though, most people get stuck where they have a vague idea of a book and they don't know how to get it done. So creating a plan, and we've been developing like a one-page plan tool. That is the first step in terms of, and the plan can encompass your writing plan. So like, what's your habit? How do you get it done? You can kind of map out, you don't need years to write a book. You can write a first draft in a month or in, 10 weeks. You can kind of break it into little chunks where it's like, if I'm going to do 45 minutes a day, for me, I had to go to bed a little bit earlier so I could wake up a bit before my kids, and woke up and I had that 45 minutes every day. And you realize you can sort of map out the word count on that. But you need to, it's really exciting in the planning stage because you get to decide the title of your book, even the working title, because you might revise it later, the title of your book, and you need to be clear on your purpose. And then when you start to play around with mind mapping and creating a simple little outline, you mentioned memoir, August. It could be based on the lessons you've learned in your experiences where you're like, okay, how do I boil down 5 lessons of real estate investment? Maybe you're just 1 year into being a real estate investor and you've learned a few lessons and you think, I'm not an expert. I can't write for everybody, but you have that fresh knowledge of a beginner, and you can actually share those lessons with the 5 steps or the 7 early lessons learned. But you do need to know why you're writing the book in the first place. Like, are you doing it to generate leads, to build authority? Are you going to launching a new program or business and you want to sort of move into this space? You do want to get clear on that, because that might, it affects a bunch of decisions. It may lead you to keeping your book simple. You're like, I'm going to cover these 7 topics in 7 chapters, and I can write 1 chapter a week as a first draft if I spend an hour a day or something like that. And you're like, okay, it's going to take me 7 weeks to do a first draft if I do a chapter a week. If you know you need 2 weeks per chapter, okay, and you have these little bits of time throughout the week, you can get it done in however many weeks it takes. But just to realize that it totally is possible. And of course, there's ways if you don't want to do the first draft yourself, of course, you can hire a ghostwriter and so on. And that gets into, if you have more money, less time, and you want to work with a professional, there are those routes to work with a ghostwriter. But you don't have to be a great writer to hammer out a rough draft, and you can narrate it. You can do it audio style, and so on. But the next steps, once you get through a first draft, is editing, and then design, and then making it available on Amazon through print on demand and ebooks. And then it's about promoting it. And there's different streams of promoting a book to get reviews, to sort of build your platform and so
And your
on.
team provides support at each one of the steps, right?
We do. We do. So people can pick and choose. We try to do the best of both worlds where we give people flexibility if they want to keep all their production files and do the distribution themselves, or they want us to do it for them. You can kind of, we can do it all, or you can pick and choose where you need help. But one thing people underestimate is just the value of someone to provide guidance step by step along the way. But that first area of getting a first draft done, there's kind of a term called book coaching. If you just don't think you can self-motivate yourself entirely yourself, you can work with a book coach you meet with once every 2 weeks just to commit to yourself to kind of moving through the steps, and they can help get you unstuck. But yes, we provide guidance and structure through the full process of editing, design, distribution, marketing.
Got it. So
People can pick and choose.
let's do a quick exercise. I'm one of your clients. I come in, I want to write a book about real estate titans. And what it entails is me going and interviewing on a one-on-one basis some of the greats of real estate currently that are, have huge kind of assets under management around the world, possibly North America. I have one problem though. It's going to be a great book because I'm going to share their stories and their journeys in this book. I don't have anywhere to connect with these titans of real estate. Could you then step in to help me strategize on how to do that?
Right.
Do you get in that much involved when it comes to me trying to write a book, or how much is your involvement, or do I have to have that figured out before I come and see your team?
Most authors have that figured out before they work with our team. It's possible we might be able to give some advice on how to do that, but in that case, it's like your outline is your set of your target list of people, and the questions you want to ask them. In that case, you're not necessarily writing as the expert, you're writing as the investigator.
Storyteller, what have you.
Yeah. So your outline in that case can be not everything these titans are going to tell you because you don't know yet, but it could be your outline is basically the questions you're going to ask. And then you're exploring this as the investigator, trying to seek out these titans and ask them questions. So of course, to get access to famous people, that's a special art that we can't claim to have within us. So that might be a bit for you to do. Actually, our former COO was heavily involved in NHL hockey, and he did a book where he interviewed the general managers of every NHL hockey team that had won the Stanley Cup. And so that was a similar project where you had to find every single, kind of like a Moneyball type book where you're trying to research the general managers of every famous hockey team that won a Stanley Cup and interview them about. But he was able to get access because, through going through the steps of becoming someone involved in hockey. But I think that's a tough challenge to do to get access there. But even if you don't get access, you could document your journey trying to get access and maybe interview people around them or find out pieces of their story as you go. Malcolm Gladwell, very well-known best-selling author. He's not writing his books based on his own expertise. He's often writing books about famous people and telling stories around famous people and so on. So you might be able to do an unauthorized book where you write about these people carefully as you investigate. Yeah.
Sure. When there's a will, there's a way. Now, somewhat of a follow-up question. What if I actually want my book to be picked up by an actual publishing house or a professional publisher? There's a platform in the real estate space called Bigger Pockets, and they have their own publishing house. Would your team provide assistance for me to then be picked up by this platform, knowing what to look for example?
We're newer into the space of a book coach, and a book coach might help prepare you to make your pitch to different types of publishers. So if you know that your book is meeting the needs of this publisher, I'm not too familiar with them, but if they have a competitive process where they're picking a small number of books to publish, based on all the ones received to them, then you have to look at their submissions process. Do they only work with agents? Do you need it to get one? Can you submit to them directly? Do you have to do what's called a book proposal, where you outline what your book idea is, maybe the first chapter or two, and what your market is? But often it's a lot about who you are. What platform do you have? That's often what attracts a traditional model of publisher. But I'd have to research that publisher. Often in that case, right now, we're not, literary agents generally work, their business model is they take a cut if they get you a deal, and usually that deal is in the form of an advance against royalties. So you earn no royalties until that advance earns out, and they take a cut of that. So that's a highly competitive process. It's not the bread and butter of what we do. We would, but if you want to do it, we earn it against it, because that can be, if that fits your goals, if you understand your goals and that's a good fit for them and that would work well for you, then we could point you in the direction.
Perfect.
That's what you would need to do. Create a proposal, do your pitch, try to get
Sounds
there.
good. Sounds good.
Awesome. Tim, how long does it typically take for you to help a client start writing a book from start to finish? How long do people usually take?
Well, we've mostly worked with authors who have a finished manuscript.
Okay.
And then they're going through editing, design, distribution, and so on. And so often it's in the 3 to 6 month range.
Well,
in
that's
terms
fast.
of, yeah. So in terms of writing a book, honestly, a lot of the authors we worked with, some have taken like 10 years to write their book, or 5
Right.
years, or 2
Yeah.
years, or 1 years. But that's something we'd like to change. Like I said, it's 80% of people, according to some surveys in the past, think they have a book in them, but it's only 1 to 3% who ever actually finish a first draft, and then a percentage of them who ever publish in any way, shape, or form. So most people get stuck with between the idea stage and actually doing a first draft. And that's where we'd like to help more people by helping them with their plan, which includes their writing plan. You don't need a well-developed publishing plan other than to know that there's lots of different suitable options for everyone. So that shouldn't hold you back. Often people, if they just have a vague understanding of publishing, they maybe don't know if it's possible or not. In one way, shape, or form, it is. But yeah, most people get stuck in the writing stage. And if they have a really clear set of goals, and then they take the step of creating a good quality outline, then they have their roadmap. They just need to deal with their mindset issues and create their little habit, which can just be find consistent amounts of very small amounts of time. Like myself, I have 2 kids, I have a family, I'm CEO of a business with 50 employees. There's lots going on. I thought I couldn't write a book, and I'm like, oh no, I can if I can create these little bits of a habit. And so hopefully more people, instead of taking 5 years and 10 years, can be creating books in a first draft within months.
But forgive me there for a second. You said that most of your business is after somebody has done a draft. That's most of your business, but you also say that you provide support when it comes to planning, which is before the first draft. So which one is it?
Yeah, like I said, the first several years of our business, it was working with people who have a finished first draft.
Oh, got it.
But it was sort of a realization on our part that no, we need to look into this space where people are really getting stuck. And that's where, whether we have book coaches who work with us, or there's other book coaches out there in the world who can help, one way or another, you just need to get clarity. You need to demystify publishing, realizing, oh no, there is a step-by-step process, and then you can get it done. I mean, some people write their books in a week or a weekend or a month. It depends on like what their goals are and the quality and the type of book they're writing.
Yes.
But
it takes Ava a weekend to write an email.
Oh, you're funny. You're funny. I was going to say time management and organization, it sounds like, right? I want to shift the conversation a little bit here to AI. What will the impact of ChatGPT be on the book publishing industry? Okay, and how has this really affected your business thus far?
We actually just did a survey internally with our employees and staff and contractors on AI, and I haven't fully reviewed everybody's input, but we're basically wanting to engage it. There's desire from employees and contractors being like, what is happening with AI? Is it going to affect us?
Hmm.
And I think it's exciting. I don't know exactly what it's going to change, but ChatGPT is one tool, and of course, there's many others. It can be a great assistant to writing a book. It can help you in many different areas. So it can help you with crafting your outline. It can help you with getting clear on your goals. It can help you playing around with rewriting or editing, or people use it in business writing all the time, right? So exactly what the norms are going to be, I think with the distribution platforms, they distinguish between AI written and AI assisted. And this is emerging and changing quite quickly, so it's hard to know where it's going to change, but certainly it's going to be a great assistant to writers. There may be tools that help with editing, different types of editing. Certainly, even on the layout and design stage, like if you are illustrating a book, and illustrators have always used, or designers have used technology to support them, right? Using Adobe InDesign and Photoshop and this and that. So, but like with an AI too, you might have a hand illustrated illustration, but with AI, you could extend the background or something like that. Is that going to become normal? So we've had people use a lot of AI in drafting their manuscripts.
Tim,
So
that's no question. We absolutely agree. If somebody's writing a book and they have the assistance of AI, ChatGPT, it's going to ease the process, even when it comes to you guys assisting them. We're more talking about could it be possibly, could AI possibly make obsolete for even some books to be written because someone could just jump on ChatGPT and get that information they're looking for. Obviously fictional books or memoirs are much harder to be written by ChatGPT, but if it's an informative instructional book, you might not need to read a full book. You might just jump on ChatGPT and get the information you need. Obviously, the book will have that entertainment factor and a storytelling part of it. But I think the question was, maybe I'm just assuming this, but my question maybe more was, will ChatGPT make obsolete certain segment of books out there that might not have been written yet because the access to so much information is available? Because a lot of time authors actually go out there and extract a lot of that information, put it in a book, and publish it. Maybe there's no need for that. People can just get it from the source or very concentrated information from ChatGPT.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
yeah, my initial thought is I don't think it's going to eliminate the power of a book in that way. It reminds me of when Monica was still a journalist and I was in publishing, and she said, well, nobody publishing a book isn't newsworthy. And that's what she thought. But then when you actually look at late night shows and what people are talking about on YouTube or YouTube channels or podcasts or TV shows or morning shows, and you start to look at it and you don't realize it because you just think it's, oh, an expert on this topic is talking about this issue. But then you look closer and you realize, oh, they're actually promoting their book or they're promoting their movie. And it's like every show on TV is somebody promoting their book. So here's the thing. On the one hand, it's also about your personal journey as a writer when you publish a book. So you are actually changing as a person through the act of writing a book. That's partly the journey why of writing a book. So it's already the case that all the information you could possibly want is out there for every book that could possibly be written. And that's not stopping people from synthesizing it into a book that is for their goals and how they're going to affect their community and their small business. That's like the question of, oh, a book on this topic has already been written. Does that mean there's no point in me writing it? Well, no, because that person who wrote a real estate investment book, they're using the book to promote their speaking and their business, but you writing your book, which is your version, and it's telling your story, your experiences with it, right? Having the human side of storytelling includes you sharing your personal experience experiences, which is different than someone else's, but you're also using the book for your set of goals. And you might not be doing a big speech in New York on the biggest stage, but you are interacting with local people in your town or your city, and your book is making you an authority in your local space. Maybe you're not competing with the biggest thought leader in the world, but you are becoming an important thought leader in your community, in your niche, whether it's a physical community or your industry or you're part of the industry. So the process of writing a book, first of all, it makes you smarter. It sharpens your ideas. You put out this horrible first draft, and then you actually have to make it better, and you get smarter as a result. That makes you a better communicator. It allows you to bring in the stories that you will use in your conversations, in your interviews, and so on. Something I still need to learn. I've worked with 5,000 authors, but I actually have one of my goals in writing a book was actually to practice the stories, individual stories throughout every topic. So that's a work in progress. But no, I don't. It's already the case that all the information on a topic is out there. There's something special about you as an individual making it meaningful to you and with the people around you, and then leveraging that book for your visibility efforts, your authority efforts.
Perfect. Much. We're going to share all your information in the show notes. Thank you so much for sharing all that information with us. We're going to move to the next segment of our show.
Yeah, the 10 championship rounds to financial freedom. Are you ready for the rapid fire 10 questions, Tim?
Nope. But go ahead anyways.
Let's do it. All right. First question. Who's been the most influential person in your life?
My wife. And when I met her, I was had my beat up car. She handed me we started dating. She handed me a copy of Think and Grow Rich. And I was a work in progress, and she's made a big impact on me and made me a better person.
That's beautiful.
Most of our guests are scared of their wives. They say the wife right away.
August is the only one who said his mom, didn't say his wife.
I've been a guest on our show. Go ahead, Ava. Let's get the next one. Rapid fire here.
Okay, here we go. I'm excited for this answer. What is the number one book you would recommend?
The book he's writing now.
Well, let's see. Let's see.
Yeah, my book is called Write with Purpose, Publish for Impact. Let's see. What would I recommend?
Is your book out yet? Has it been?
Not yet. No, I'm in the revisions process. The revisions process is taking longer than the first draft. Can we come back to this one?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Let's go.
Absolutely. Next question. If you had the opportunity to travel back in time, what advice would you give your younger self?
I would say, my parents always said, do what you want, what you're passionate about. I think that's good advice, but I think I would encourage myself to be more entrepreneurial and open to business earlier in life, because when you're in your early 20s and late 20s, you have so much energy, you can work throughout the night. And sure, education is nice, getting work experience is nice, but I think there's so much entrepreneurial opportunity for young people. I would, and my parents didn't come from a business background. It was more like a teacher and a civil servant. So I would encourage more to explore the possibilities of business earlier in life.
Absolutely. And forgive me, Tim, prior to the show, while we're preparing for the show, I forgot to mention that these questions are meant to put you somewhat under the gun. So take your time. It's meant to be challenging. So take your time, think about the answer. We're here. So it's created a great dialogue in the past. So keep going, Ava.
Absolutely. Okay, next question, Tim. What's the best investment you've ever made?
Well, I started with a lot of debt after being a student. And so I invested in that app called Mint, which was for tracking your finances. And so I had to shift my mindset and start paying off my debt so that I could then take the leap into entrepreneurialism. So I found that very good, just having the financial management app, Mint, to take control of my personal finances.
Nice. Awesome. Okay. Now, what's the worst investment you've ever made, and what lessons did you learn from it?
And it doesn't have to always be financial. It could be time. Time is also money.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. When I started a business, the first full-time role I tried hiring was a software developer to start building technology. And I realized I had no idea what I was doing. So I won't say and this was a contractor before we even had our first full-time employee. And I will say I ended up not knowing how to manage the person at the time. And I was so frustrated because I didn't know how to keep him accountable. And I was spending what to me at the time was a lot of money. It was I had my first sort of revenue coming in, and I was putting it into some technology. But I look back at that, and honestly, it was just the school of hard knocks. And that was actually a good investment in hindsight, but it's kind of part of the scar tissue of starting a business. You have to learn lessons the hard way.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. All right. Next question is, how much would you need in the bank to retire today? What's your number?
Yeah, I love joking about the whole retirement idea because what I would do when I retire is start a retirement businesses, right? Where I am continuing to do business. So honestly, I would say from that perspective, I don't need any money in the bank because I'm still going to be plugging away doing retirement businesses.
Nice.
There you go. Awesome. Okay. If you could have dinner with someone dead or alive, who would it be?
Maybe Don Cherry is a Canadian hockey commentator, and he's alive, but we actually worked with his daughter on a book about the Don Cherry story. So certainly if I could, and his daughter passed away this past year. So
Oh,
if I could have a dinner with both Don and his daughter coming back, then that would be lovely.
no, of course. Yeah. It's unfortunate that he with what's happening with the world these days, he was kind of ostracized for speaking his mind, which in
Yeah.
some cases
Yeah.
is the truth though. And
So his daughter's book though is a rallying cry in his defense, certainly, and he was a big supporter of veterans and a great man and a great hero in Canada. So yeah, it was too bad when he
of course. Yeah.
got too much flack. The
Absolutely.
height of cancel culture at the time.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it was, a cancel
Yeah, absolutely.
campaign on him.
All right, Tim, next question. If you weren't doing what you're doing today, what would you be doing now?
I might be coaching other entrepreneurs. Honestly, I love people who are starting businesses, and I think it's such a journey with so many challenges and so much possibility. So I love being around that energy, and I've had my own sort of journeys, ups and downs. I love to work with other entrepreneurs, supporting them as a coach in some way.
Nice. Awesome.
There's no pun intended in the next question, but go ahead, Ava.
Book smarts or street smarts?
Street smarts.
Oh, wow.
Nice. Okay.
Great.
I have to say, yeah, I maybe should say get some street smarts from books that have been written by people with street smarts.
Possibly. I think we're at like 99% street smarts
smarts,
answers
yeah.
on our 300 guests we've had on our show.
Absolutely. All right, Tim, last question. Okay. If you had $1 million in cash and you had to make one investment today, what would it be?
Buying a company. And I think it would be a company that would combine well with our company. So I think that's what I would look at for joining forces with another company and that's an interesting thing to think about, how different companies can come together and create more than the sum of their parts. So
No, you're
I
talking
think
our space. You talk about M&As, right? What really Blackstone does. That's what they started out as, a M&A and leverage buyout. So they would buy companies and merge them with other companies and take them public and take them off the stock market. So yeah, very interesting. Do we want to come back to question number 2? What's the number 1 book you recommend? Or a couple of books, some ones that stuck in your mind, maybe a client's book that kind of stuck out, anything that comes to mind.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm doing a lot of business and entrepreneurship and publishing, but on the side, I'm a dad. And there is a book called The Anxious Generation that's come out in the last year. There's also The Coddling of the American Mind. And it's about how, and Lenore Skenazy, I think, she's written books on free range parenting. And when I grew up as kids, we could go out on the street and the playground and go out in nature. And, when I was growing up, my kids would ring the bell and we'd come home. And nowadays, there is so much safety, which is good, but it's gotten to the point of extreme safety that prevents children from having more autonomy and independence. And on the one hand, you've got this online world, which is actually maybe more dangerous than the physical world. And I think as we look to protect children from the online world, we actually need to give them more space in the real world and actually allow parents to make their own parenting decisions about what safety is, as opposed to the rules just getting harsher and harsher and it clamping down on parents so that they have to be helicopter parents because letting your child do anything with any degree of independence is, putting you at risk of being labeled as a bad parent. So there's a book on that topic called Anxious Generation, not published by us. That's by Jonathan Haidt. I think that's an interesting one because if we want entrepreneurs, if we want economies that are growing with more diversification and so on, we need more entrepreneurs, and that starts with children. And in fact, there's one of our books is by a former Navy SEAL in the US, and he wrote a book that's aimed at children about developing, grit and so on. And even Lamar Jackson, the MVP, he worked with us on two, not nonfiction books, children's books, but it's children's books about instilling values of hope and opportunity and taking risks. His book is called I Dream, You Dream, Let Us Dream by the NFL MVP the last 2 years, Lamar Jackson. So check that book out if you have kids and you want them to develop an entrepreneurial mindset.
Amazing.
Right
Amazing.
on.
I felt so much passion there, Tim, that there might be a book inside you about this topic.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. All right.
Next up.
Great.
And let us know because we have a 1-year-old and we have a baby coming January 1st. So
Absolutely.
we're very passionate.
Yes.
about
Thank you so
it.
much. Thanks for sharing all your stories with us. Thanks for your transparency and
Thanks,
sharing
Tim.
answering these questions. And yeah, maybe last thing, what's the best way people can connect with you? Maybe you can say it if somebody's listening to this on.
Absolutely. Tellwell Publishing is our website. If you're in the early stages, we're sort of new in developing our sort of plan your book on a one-page plan. Connect with me directly on LinkedIn, Tim Lindsay Tellwell. Tim-Lindsay-story is my LinkedIn profile. Connect with me there and you can be an early adopter.
Perfect.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Tim.
Thanks so much, Tim.
Thanks for having me. Excited for your next child.
Thank you for joining us for this episode. We hope this conversation enlightened you on how to win big in this highly profitable and risk-averse space. Get on your feet and embrace this world that offers so many opportunities just waiting for you out there. Continue your journey to becoming a savvy real estate expert by subscribing to the show at cpicapital.ca. Don't forget to leave a positive rating and share with your friends. See you on the next one.